Good evening, Pamakapa TV viewers. Amaqhawe 2 welcomes you to our usual news slot. Today, we are starting a new slot every Thursday from 6:30 to 7:30. We welcome you. We thank you for your support, and we appreciate our program is about liberation heritage. Anything and everything that has to do with liberation heritage. Heroes, unsung heroes, events that are never mentioned, we are bringing up to you. Today, Sinophuthembekile Iphu, umntana womgquba walapha eGqeberha, kwisixeko sikaNelson Mandela, ophume izandla waqeqeshwa wakhulela emzabalazweni apha kweli bhayi. Ukunye nathi ke namhlanje ezobalisa ngeyakhe indima ayenzileyo emzabalazweni. Uzasixelela asinike inkcukacha ebalaseleyo. Ndicela nimamkele kumakhaya enu. Ndicela nimmamele. He's going to be talking to us as people of Gqeberha, as people of Nelson Mandela. Mr. Clip, welcome to our program. Can you greet the viewers and listeners at home and tell them who is Thembekile Twigs Iphu? Thank you.
Nkosi sasazi mandizibulesele kuni nababukeli nabamameli. Igama lami nguThembekile kaXiphu, who is just known internationally or generally as Twigs kaXiphu, okhulele apho eBhayi, azalelwe eLundini, lakhulele eFekesini, la ukhulela ndimke sihlahla ledumlanda ke ekhaya. And ndiyavuya ukuba ndiparticipate kule program. Kodwa ke ikhona into endikhe ndayiraise. It's not false humility. Ndiyayithanda ititle yenu yamaqhawe, kodwa ke ndifuna ndiyirekhode uba ndingajongwa as umntu iqhawe, but umntu who has participated apha emzabalazweni. Njengomntu ukhulele apho ke eBhayi, ndizibona izinto, ndikhule nge-60s, nge-70s, and then I was also active ke uqala kwamba active politically ndiqale ekholejini, ngoba ngo-73 I went to Kwano College eFort Hare. The very first year sifika kweFort Hare kwaba khona i-need yokuba sibonise i-solidarity nezinye i-students. Ndiyasummarize nje, sawalka out ngo-73, so asimgqibanga ngo-73 eFort Hare. And then by then ke besendiyi-member ye-South African Students Organization, iSASO. I-formation ke yayiqalwe ngoSteve Biko, ngoMapetla, ngoBhali Pitshana, inkokeli zethu. And then ke after that samne sabuyela kwakhona eFort Hare, that continued from 74 until kwakhona kwavuka izidubedube ngo-76. Kwafuneka simkile ke. Let me just be clear ukuba abanye bethu bagecwa, kodwa sikhoza ibuyela ke eFort Hare. Ekungabuyeleni kwethu sahlangana nabangani bam nezinye friends zethu ukuba ikhona na into esingayenza ngoba sigxothiwe nje esikolweni. Sadecide ukuba njengoba sititsha, sibiziwe nokuba sititshe kwezikolo ke eCowan, eLoyiso, nakwaZakhela, I think nasendilibele esinye isikole, I think eNkqubela. And then sathi masiqokelele ke aba bantu sibaziyo bakwi-sciences ukuba make senze into, igalelo, while sihleli elokishini masibe negalelo kwi-education. And ngokwenza ukuthi igalelo safomisha i-organization esiyasibiza i-Association for Science and Technology. Apho ke sa-recruiter abantu abebesebenza ezibhedlele ezi-technologies, ii-lab technologies, nee-radiographers or radiologists. So ke sabe sayifoma loo nto leyo, sayenza, safaka kwi-leadership yethu, safaka uThozamile Botha, safaka uRay Mabophe, safaka uNune Mgoduka, kwaba khona uShwabi, uMsizi, kube khona ke nabanye ke endingenababiza but because sonke sisebenza kule organization yethu sizama ukuphucula i-maths and science. Number two, sayibona ukuba azikho ne-lab apha ezikolweni zethu. Sa-organizer, siyaqokelela imali uba simake sizama ukufundraiser for setting up e-labs and also setting up i-libraries ezikolweni zethu. Kuthe kusenjalo ke izinto ezenzeke ngo-76 no-77 zaqhuma eBhayi. As we all know ke iBhayi alishiywa ngasemva when it comes to umzabalazo. So from 76, I always emphasize that June 76 wethu eBhayi ungu-August 18th. August 1876 kwenzeka okwenzekayo. Zaphakama students labe liyatsha liyaphuma iBhayi. 1977, during this whole period of instability, students zitoyitoya amabhulu afika zine-meeting eSt. Stephen's. As they surrounded them, they realized that their vans were not enough for the many students. So they decided to isolate and pick the male students. And a total of 474 years of students ziyathathwa. Bathi besemkile lezo students kwaba khona enye itshanhliziyo lalapha e-areeni owaziwa ngegama lokuba ngubhatata wakwaKani owaya ngoba i-students ezingamantombazana zashiwa zitshixelwe zona phaa eSt. Stephen's. So ubhatata wahamba woqhekeza ezo zitshixo bebuya bakhulula ke abantwana. And amongst those that were released there by uBhatata was my late sister uSiziwe at Khwebo. From that day on, i-AFSAT, which was focusing on science and technology, sathi nansi ingxaki abantwana babanjiwe. Not all parents have the ability to raise the funds zokubhatala amagqwetha. Saya kuzo zonke ifamily sisithi akho family funeka izibone ihlelelekile. If ifamily nganye ngacontribute only 10 rand, sizawaqokelela amagqwetha. Ngenene ke sawaqokelela amagqwetha, sathetha nawo ukuba sicela asincedise ngale case, siza kuwabhatala. Amongst the initiatives and the efforts esizazenzayo other than ukuhlangana ke nososhishini, sadla ngohlanganela phaya kwa-AD yeko. Unfortunately, yabona ngokuseyikekelela building apha kwaZakhela kwakuthiwa kwaCheese. Saqokelela ke sazama ukuba makube khona i-unity amongst the students, the parents in general. And number two, kungabikho students esihlelelekileyo. Sa-organizer ke i-fundraiser. One of the initiatives esizenzileyo kuku-organizer i-concert eyayiseRio esasiyibiza uSave the Children.
Wow.
Kulo concert i-organizations like i-Black Slaves, Soul Jazzmen, Tulips, Afro Teens, and I hope our content is shared. Zatohwana zasebenza zicontributor for free. And nathi entry yakulo concert sasibiza I think $50 or something like that. Sakwazi ke organizer ukuba sibaxelele abantu izinto, one of the aims and objectives zomzabalazo, but singafuni uba political kula concert. Unfortunately ke izinto got out of hand. Kwaba khona abantu bakhwela estagini bethetha. One of them anzokumbiza igama lakhe but ke omnye wasimoshayo it turns out ke wayesebenzela umthetho. After lo concert saphuma I think about 12 siklina yonke izinto, but by 3 a.m. The following morning on Monday sabe siyaqokelelwa ke and we were taken to a detention. Mind you, disabrizile le fundraising ngoba in addition to us fundraising, sasiqokelela on a daily basis imali zokutya. Number two, insista apha kwe-SBs nakamapolisa asifuna ubanika babanike. We would go to Algoa sibanika ngokwethu i-students. And it's how we were able to even get a number of them basinike messages esazithumela sizidlulise kwifamily zabo. At that time, that was quite a revolutionary and a bold action, or if I may say so, on our part. And ubona onivoti bayasinyanya. And I used to say that yes, univoti one day we have disaka sahlangana. And indeed,
wow,
on that day, see detainwa ngayo. That's the first thing I like to tell you. Yeah, sadibana. Anyway, through detention, we interrogated, beaten up, severely beaten up. Especially when you vote, I still remember it. When they rubber in a spring, a packet, a coiled metal thing, was a betting ayo no tozi. Apho sasibelwe khona abanye insabukhumulana ngoku ubizwa uzwayi umnyana wakaTibi uSmoli wayenguSmoli ngoku but kodwa ke ngoku ubizwa uzwayi. Omnye wayeditheniwe kule group yethu yayinguMonica Mvula olapho eBhayi. Kube khona omnye ongusosishini ngoku kodwa ke ndingambiza naye uba wayeditheniwe ukhonayo uKhola Bhenqa lo unegarage gas station apha eNtshekisa. Kube khona abanye oRito Mkhatha ubizwa uLami ngoku lapha eGauteng. So ke those are the people who we acted with, sadetainwa in the process ke kwachajwa. Two people were charged kula case yethu enguthozi Bota no Monica Mvula. Fortunately ke since there was no evidence by end up bekhululwa Tosman. So that was my overt and very visible activism and participation ngaphakathi ekhaya.
Wow.
Kodwa ke in addition to that, there were also 2-3 other areas. Besenditshilo babendiyimember yeSASO. Ekubeni bemember yeSASO kube khona ezinye initiatives abantu bakhe bathethe ngezinto ekuthiwa i-organizations other than the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist Congress, the Unity Movement formation. I happened to also bump into a cell structure, an underground cell structure, yayilidwa ngumlonzi, the late advocate Mlonzi. Kulo group yethu abanye esasinabo kulo underground structures zethu yayingo Dumisa Ntsebeza no Professor Ntsebeza kunye no Sayi Mlonyeni waseMonti kunye a number of other people. So njengoba simane zinhlanganiso sesisebenza sine cells zethu eFort Hare kanti apha phakathi kwethu kukhona umuntu osebenzela iESB. Lo muntu wathi ngenye imini decide ukuba uzawuconfessa ukuba I've been unholy. Long and short of it, by the time 76 happened, amabhulu besesijongile ukuba as troublemakers. And I have to say in all humility, we were not responsible for the studying of the students led their own initiative. 1976, but in the interest and in the emehlweni amabhulu, we were part of that. So by the time detainwa again no Tosman, kokhona nele effort yokufuna ukulinka lento yethu yo Tosman nale underground structure ebendikuso eFort Hare, which failed. The last part, I'll just so that kube khona imibuzo. In the process of ukuzabalaza senze zonke izinto, and then kwakhona dadibana no kwaziswa mandibeke ngolo hlobo kunzima uyi-explain ngenye kwaziswa a person owayephuma eKirkwood originally, but the only person that I've ever met, a trained soldier and a cadre of Umkhonto weSizwe, also fakwa endlini yami ngo-77, 78 andisakhumbule ukuphela konyaka, uMthulu uMakhwezi kaMthulu, a person that I always want the country to know about, Makhwezi MacDonald Mthulu. Sebenzile naye ndimfunela i-safe houses, sisebenza sithetha, ndivile uba kukhona abantu abamaziyo apha endifuna udibana nabo, ndizawuphinda ndive ngawe msasazi uba ngobani. Kodwa ke as people may know, uMakhwezi wabethwa ke ibomb on Kwood Street I think in March 1978.
Thank you very
At that
much.
time,
Thank you
ke sa-
very much. We have to take a
Yeah.
break now, and I want you to come back and finish up about Amaqhawe Mthuli. Thank you very much, viewers. You can go and have a bit of a break, Nobanyeko, my friend, and come back and listen what Ubud Twigs is bringing to us. We left him speaking about Ubawo Mthuli. Thank you very much. Please do welcome him back into your homes. Ubud Twigs, Uyongose, Udikela Kanoni. Over to you. Usiqalisela ngoBawo Mthuli.
Okay. Bendisathetha ke ngeliqhawe, and somebody I was eager to talk about, and I'm still eager to meet people abake bahlangana naye. Amaqhawe lo phuma apha eKirkwood wahamba apha eSouth Africa ngo-1972 bephuma nabo kule organization nam ndandibhilonga kuyo, iSASO, the South African Students Organization. Bathi bona bayofuna isibhamu. So since he had left 72 ke wahamba waya ku-training ngaphandle, I think uye nase-Soviet Union, waze nase-Ethiopia, waze wabuya ke ndizohlangana naye ke ngo-77 nje ndingamazi. Yazi into emzabalazweni, you have to have a leap of faith, uthembe, ngoba you could even be set up, ngoba kwaziswa umuntu nanamhlanje. That's why abamameli nabaphulaphuli uba bangaze bandincede abo bekhe badibana naye. In fact, I don't even know lo muntu owamzisa phaa kum, ndingayazi ndatunjwa ngaboni mna. Kodwa ke sasebenza ke nomfo kaMthuli. He took me through i-basics, the underground work. Ezinye ke besendinazo koko besendifumene phaa kulam mbutho wethu noNtsebeza. Iliterature besendibona nayo i-leftist Marxist-Leninist literature. Kodwa ke wandithatha through the processes ke ze-DLP nezinto, what to do, how to organize. Ke ngelishwa ke ngoMarch 78 ke wathi saphethe le nto wayiphethe yambetha. And lo bomb ke yaphansa yasibetha nathi indim naye endlini eGqamlana, sisahleli phaya edibanisa. I was making connections, and ke mna ke bendla ngo-organizela watch cheap timers. One time wathi sadibanisa ezo nto eziyo aphuma amehlo wakhe nam, mind you, kandazi too much ke mna ke ngela technology. Nawo amamahla aphuma, fortunately yayingekonnektwanga ku-detonator, so ke ngoku zange isibethe sobabini endlini. Anyway, point I'm making is that I think it's March 1978 apho yambetha, and then ke wabe uyanyamalala, and into eyandoyikisayo really scared the lights out of me. The following day, Herald had a 2-page spread on his life and his history. Now, still a question that still need to be asked, but they fulminate law information within 24 hours. Yakho yazicingela ke nawe mlesi, 24 hours iHerald bese ne-profile yakhe. Kodwa ke iyona nto ke yayingandiphathi kakuhle, it's the last paragraph. Sayifuna nangokule article, kwathiwa siyazazi i-contact zakhe sizawuzifumana. Ke isizwe sandihambisa torhwana until ndaze ndahamba finally ngoJune ngo-78 ndaphuma, but ndangaphumiswa yiloo nto, ndingabaleki loo nto leyo, kodwa ke ndandiphumela ezinye izinto. So ke ndabe ndiyayishiya ikhaya ngo-77, and ndibe ndishiya nee-students zam torhwana endixolisayo kuzo ezasekhaweni, ngoba ezinye zazisakhala namhlanje kuba ndazishiya amaphepha awo zingawanikanga ntowanika, kodwa ke imeko ke yayifuna kuba kube njalo. And ke as I'm finishing up kule kaMaqhawe into siyathemba ukuba i-country izade imrecognize anikwe as one of those heroes in national awards. Okwangoku ndizayibeka apho, ndawubeka ingca apho ngoMaqhawe.
Ngiyazivela ke Bukeli uyabalisa ngoMakhwezi, and I think he's pushing up an appeal for those that know him to come forward and make contact with him. He would like to have more information, as you hear that there is an initiative to get Makhwezi Mtulo recognized, but the information needs to be upfront. Thank you very much.
Right.
You are telling us that you also left the country. And where did you go? And how did you go? And what were your experiences as you left the country, Pratwix, if I may?
Into esasithethe nayo, it's a strange thing ngoba even by the time ngihlangana noMakhwezi, I was thinking yofundisha umzabalazo ngaphandle ngoba amabhulu kudala emane endigrogrisa ukuba ndza end up and spend a lot of time Robben Island, and knowing what I know now, I think ngabe bendibulela nokundibulala. Uthathwa kwam nel group solitary confinement. I still remember detention papers yami yayibhalwe section 6. Section 6 ke ngolo ICT ufuneka ugcinwe for 180 days. Gcinwa kwindawo ezi-different, ndaqala ndafakwa I think eKhabega, apho sabana event ebuhlungu yokulwa nabanye abantu phaya kwakusekhona ii-gangs ekuthiwa ngoma-two-way nama-one-way eBhayiwo. And then from esasele ndathunyelwa eWoma, and I had this unfortunate or the honor yokuba ndingene kwisele apho uSteve Biko wayegcinwe khona. Ukungena kwami kwesisele, by the way, ndigqithana ndi-exchange inote nelinye itshantliziyo elisengekhoyo ngoku, the late Mbuyi Madaka. And I tried to communicate with him. I thought he was being released. During my detention, nobody knew. Abazali, family, friends, nobody. You were just held. And at the mercy of Amapur. They definitely had their way with me. They tried everything else to break me, to confess that what we were doing in Afsat was a continuation of what they considered to be my communist and terrorist activities aforte, which was far from the truth. After a lot of that, I definitely not, if body I could be released from detention, they will never ever lay their hands on me. And again, I was fortunate in the sense that after they investigated and found people that they thought they were going to charge, that would be Monica Mvula, Tozamila Bota, Tozamila Vatala Kwango. So Tozamila Bota no Monica they charged release one. Sisonke. Abe amanye amabhulu engaxolanga. I don't know hierarchies ngoba kwaphina ndidetainwa khona for 3 days, and kufunwa la paper lam ndabe ndiliginyile ela paper lithi ku-section 6. So ke ndakhululwa ngoko. After that I saw ukuthi soze baphinda bandibona. Anyway, after a lot of other things, ukusebenza uzabalaza end up ke sihamba, ndaqanisa uhamba, ndahamba nomngane wam unune kwaMgoduka, uTolo Hlangamandla. So we had a route esasindadi discuss noMakhwezi ezawuya ngaseLesotho. Now uMakhwezi akasekho. So we had to find our way, and in discussion we wanted a country that is not surrounded by South Africa, because we always had felt that Amabhulu can always reach Lesotho. So we finally decided, no, we were doing an investigation. We found out that something that's very strange now, that there was a train that left PE all the way up to back then Salisbury. That will be Harare namhlanje eZimbabwe. Sayibona was le train iyanqumla eBotswana. But now there was a challenge. How do you get on the train to cross the border ngenamaphepha? So we had to do other ways of funa amaphepha. I used to have umuntu nanombizo uba home affairs wami. We had a contact a king okuthiwa nguSidayi Gantsho. ubizwa uBudon ngoku, and is a retired civil servant ebesebenza kwaSASSA. So wake wandifunela amaphepha okuqala, ngoba even during the time ngisahlala nje South Africa, amabhulu wayenganiki nalamaphepha okutravelisha to KZN. So wayendenzele ke, so nana amaphepha, but of course anamanye amagama. Basizawuhamba saphinda safumana sa-organize amaphepha anjalo ke nomngani wami, ngoba funeka ube namaphepha an ID that doesn't have your actual details but has other names. So I was able then to use that. We left the country. The only glitch was in Amaqhawe, where amabhulu angena nezinja with air things, and I think amagama asibuza sachaza manje singabantu nje thina be-SCM sasinqobe kakuhle, of course ke abantu baseBhaya sinqobe wrong, but kasinqobe nejasi ke ngoko sibonakala ngathi ngabantu becawa. The only thing that almost blew our cover was the question was, where are your visas? Arrogantly said, no, we've traveled to Eswazini and so on, we've never been asking visa. And when I think I'm a bulaitan and about this Bantustan documents about the Southern Africa. After 30 minutes interrogation, I adlula funabanya ba. Sabe siyaphuma ke ngoko nomngane wami. Sabe siyongena eGaborone, as far as we know by then, eGaborone. So ke sangena ke eGaborone sahlala safika ninzi kukhona abantu who were looking for solutions. As people generally know, the older organizations, the African National Congress and then the Pan-Africanist Congress, yes, they were there in exile. But not during that time, just as you see impatience here, we also felt that, no, this organization as now, you're the agents that we have. Let's find our own solution. So together with a lot of other young folks from BCM organizations, from even the students from SOH, we kept trying to find solutions. At the same time, we also had older people said, no, must reorganize as united as our formations. And this is these organizations, this Jibanese. We had a very noble mission. Little did we know that the contradictions were far deeper than what we knew. After a lot of meetings, of course, nothing came of it. And then I was, let me say, I was forced to leave Botswana. Fortunately, I had 2 offers of scholarships. I ended up in Washington, D.C., but continued organize and work. So in Washington, D.C., then I was representing the Black Consciousness Movement at the time. And then later in 1980, April, actually before that, we also had one of our leaders who left the country, Pichan. He left, and then he first to Lesotho and then to London. And then it was a congress that was organized by him and other leaders that we attended that ended up in the formation of what is now called the Black Consciousness Movement of Azania, which would be the external wing of the BCM formations inside the country. That is what I operated under, and that is what I was representing in the US, in North America. And then, of course, I was honored at some point in my life of being elected the deputy chair of the organization, deputy to Comrade Msibudi Mangena. And it's during those initiatives that we even were successful in organizing and launching an army, the Azanian National Liberation Army. And as I'm sitting here, proudly sitting here, I'm honored and humbled to say that I'm the only deputy commander-in-chief of the Azanian National Liberation Army, an army that had its first training in the liberated zones of Eritrea, got support and funding from Libya, the Jamairia. We got some support from Yugoslavia and other countries. On the other front, because I also had to carry other fronts, as a student based in the US, we also had a mission of organizing students. Now, across the political spectrum, we felt that America is too big. So we organized students. In fact, we had our very first, as an organization here in South Africa called SASCO. We had the first SASCO, which was the South African Students Committee, founded at Howard University, where I was a student. And we had our we're using clippings from home. One of our publications, I think in 1983, February, was banned by the regime here in South Africa, which we always thought was kind of fun. We organized students, again, students we said, whether you're PAC, ANC, BCM, or non-aligned, it's fine. We organized them. We were successful in that. At some point, the Americans wanted to use our students, our scholarship programs, to support their constructive engagement. We stopped that when they were supposed to be paraded with Chester Crocker. And then we founded an organization called the South African / Azanian Students Movement, which, by the way, we still had our own political homes. But this organization is a non-sectarian organization. It was headed by the current, you probably see him every now and then on TV, Professor Seth Cooper. His deputy was a gentleman who for a long time we knew as David Ndaba, who was representing the ANC at the UN, who later got to be our Secretary for Defense. He has just passed on a few years ago, Sam Golube. And then we had other people who were in the organization, then the leadership. Well, bottom line is this organization that had people from all streams.
Beautiful.
We continued operating, and one of the things that we focused on is making sure that Americans understood our struggle, and that American policymakers also were able to make the right decision. It was tough, difficult, but we were able to do that. I'll pause there.
Thank you very much. This is quite a very interesting story, and I think it's the first time it is shared that people from PAC, BCM, ANC had one common goal: to liberate. No differences, acting as students. Thank you very much for sharing that. It is what we need, because these stories are those that are never shared or never told.
Yes.
Sukela okokoko ke ngokwenza yonke le nquleqhu nalamalinge okukhulula ezinye zona izinto mhlawumbe ucinga ba zizinto ezenzekileyo ngelixesha ningaphandle, or were there any negatives okanye infighting amongst yourselves, if I may ask that question, from different organizations?
Into yenzekile ke apha ngaphandle ngaphakathi hayi ngaphandle. Yes, there were always those small tips, disagreements and so on, but we never made it a point. We used to agitate or educate and say that our struggle is one. We may have different approaches, but it was sad and very painful for us to realize that in the 80s there was this serious fighting inside our country, where abantu babulelene in the name of defending the Freedom Charter, or abanye bekuthiwa ngamazimzim. That was one of the lowest and saddest moments in the history of our country, where we ended up killing more of our Black people than with using the necklace than even engaging the enemy. That is one sad thing. To the extent that again, on the same vein agenda of continuing the negotiations, I once had an opportunity to meet with a friend of mine and a comrade when I came to Southern Africa, where we discussed this thing over 2 days. We can't allow our people babulalane ngolo hlobo. I met with omnye umuntu ozalwe lapha eBhayi, uLinda Kamthi, ubizwa uRich. So Gichomyam, by that time, he was a senior member of Umkhonto and the ANC in Zimbabwe. again sizama ukufuna abantu bakhe sincokoleni ngoba abantu babulawa sisi angabantu esibaziyo and siyazana. Kodwa ke yenzeka loo nto leyo yade yaphela, which is very unfortunate. Number two, in terms of disagreements and agreements, when it came to the processes of the negotiation, we had slightly as the Black Consciousness Movement of Azania / Azapo as the BC grouping. We had a slightly different take. We felt that we needed to negotiate with the enemy in a neutral terrain, where we would also have a neutral mediator, so that we don't have a situation where the enemy has advantage of the resources at their disposal. Unfortunately, we never succeeded in that, particularly from the ANC side. To a certain extent, when it comes to our engagement with the Pan-Africanist Congress, we were able to invite the PAC to our meeting, which we held in Kadoma in Zimbabwe. We had, I think, about 4 days of meeting with the leadership of the ANC, at the time by President Umlambo, i-deputy yakhe ingu-Advocate Museneke. It was also risky because at the time Advocate Museneke was coming from inside the country. We also had our leadership that was coming from inside the country. That was led by people like Onef, Austrian Moodley. So we had this session. We thought we had agreed with our comrades in the PAC. Unfortunately, things went differently, and then our resolutions and our decisions are pelemoyeni. Unfortunately, then we could not move any further, and that ended up with the processes of 1994 happening without us participating in. It's an unfortunate development, but it's also a learning experience for us, because we, to a certain extent, I must say, we underestimated the eagerness of our people to participate in the voting process. So those are some of the things that, those are lessons that we look at, we reflect, and we say, well, we just hope that things could have gone differently. But I do also see that now there's a lot of criticism about the processes and the deals and so on. Some of the things you don't want to then say as an activist, now we told you so. Some of the weaknesses that were contained within the dispensation are beginning to show their ugly heads right now, and people are complaining. But we still hope against hope that as people committed to the total and true liberation of our country, we can still find one another. But at this time, and we are too old, some of us are old and tired now, we may be holding on to our old positions. Siyathemba ukuba ulutsha and the young and up and coming people bazawuyithatha lento baqhubeke nayo. We always say that thina siyenzile eyethu, sidlalele yethu indima. It's up to them. We've opened the political processes. Nobody can be arrested now for belonging to one particular formation. Could it be a communist party? Could it be any revolutionary organization? So ulutsha lwethu, I always teach that. They should pick it up. They have a better space. They have the international community. They also have the communication facilities. Esasingenazo. Thina sizabalaze kungekho cell phones, kokhona i-fax ne-cyclostats esasenza ngazo i-pamphlets. Speaking of pamphlets, there's another part, is part of my story, by the way. This comes out in my own, I'm just trying to work out on my story right now. That is my memoirs. There is a pamphlet that was distributed in Port Elizabeth in 1977, in August 17th. Low pamphlet leyo kuthiwa Steve Biko and PC Jones were accused of having written. I just wanted to, for the record, it should be stated that unfortunately bebetyholwa ngento abangayenzanga. Lo pamphlet yayenziwe sithi, and we used a machine esasi umboleke ekhaweni ebusuku. Sayenza hizo pamphlets, and the stairway in August 1877 was a success, because we were calling for that. That is the pamphlet in the interrogations. Like Steve, P.C. Jones, they were accused of writing this pamphlet. And I think, for the record now, publicly, it can be stated that, yeah, they rightly and correctly denounced it because they knew nothing about it. It was our pamphlet. I'm still looking for it, by the way. I hope I can still find it from Herald, archives as a Herald. Anyway, that is about my summary, my participation in Windows Mzabalazo. And yes, I do, as I did indicate, I like the program, but I won't consider myself as Amaqhawe. But as an activist and as a regular person who had a role to play, and I still feel that the few years I still have, I can make some contributions, but not as eagerly as I was when I was still young, which is the message I also send to young people. While you have the youth on your side, take advantage of it. Study, interact, and then contribute. All of us, funeka sithi xa simka apha, sibe kona sithi sinesivivana. At least I've been able to contribute this little bit. We don't have to be the leaders. We all don't have to go to parliament. But let's make sure that we leave this earth, this world, a better world than we found it.
You are just on the next question that I wanted to pose to you, that of saying what should be done. Because you had out of nowhere an association for science and technology that was meant to encourage mathematics and science. But the current youth has all the resources at their disposal. Can you give also other advice as to what can be done to change things as your parting shot?
Oh, there's quite a lot that can be done. The young people of today, they also have all the advantages. I mean, while we may have a limitation in terms of communication, for instance, the young people need to know that if they need knowledge, if they need to access information at Yale University, Harvard University, they have that. But what is still lacking is that consciousness that we need to do things for self. We should not be blaming or waiting for. I always insist that, see, now we succeeded academically, yes, with terrible grades, not because of this apartheid regime, but despite the apartheid regime. So, to the young folks, let them take advantage of what is available, number one. Number two, let the young folks know that, yes, they have an obligation to this country, but their aspirations that are confined to the geographic boundaries of South Africa. For them, the world, or this, you don't no longer even have to say the sky is the limit, because now we're able to go to the moon, to Mars. So for them, let them take advantage of these opportunities. But most importantly, they also need to know the importance of organization, getting together. We have a situation that requires a relook at the processes. We don't have to say people have to belong to particular organization politically, but we do have an obligation of the development of our country. Chinese kids, Indonesian kids are able to get involved in technological developments, in technology innovation at a young age. It's some of the fact that these things are possible. Let the young people take charge of their future. They also need, yes, assistance. Let them ask questions, tough questions. But unfortunately, the recklessness that you occasionally see, even young kids, we are unfortunately messed up by these hallucinogens and drugs. That's some of the challenges that the young people are doing. And they're not the only ones, by the way, in South Africa dealing with it. In the country that I lived in, a lot of young people are still, to this day, still victims of these drugs. but people continued organizing. They need to be aware. I have, for instance, I've drafted, there's a document that I've done on substance abuse, the kind of drugs that young people are doing. We just need to share that. Let the people know that. I'm also, as my parting shot, I'm also alcohol use, misuse, and abuse. Because other than everything else, by the way, at some point in my life, I was a student of science. I'm a molecular biologist who ended up coming back home, ended up being working for the Department of Health, and then later got recruited by the post office. So but I had at the post office technology division, and then from there corporate affairs, and that's when I retired. Ulucha, let them take advantage of what is available.
Mandenza Mazombulele on behalf of Amaqhawe ethu Mpumakapa TV for this wonderful information on Liberation Heritage. You involved as an activist, because you don't want to be called a hero, as an activist, let us give you that honor to say thank you very much for the for the role that you've played and the information that you've brought to us, and showing the unity that was there amongst yourselves as exiles, yourselves as pre-1980s working together with SASO, NESASCO, and many other organizations that you have formed. We thank you for that. And we wish to invite you back again, because we've held Oba Upani Pityana on this platform sharing information that you are bringing. We've had Otozamile Bota on this platform, and we're having the likes of you again. So we wish again that you may come back and share many other stories related to the liberation of our people. Thank you very much. Ayabulela Amaqhawe ethu. Enkosi.